just take one cap, just something light. You'll feel good. The mushrooms want you to like them. And so the first time you do it, they're going to welcome you. They're going to be like, oh, man, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
We're going to straighten out all your personal problems, all these little weird personality tics that you got, all this strange shit, trouble you keep getting yourself into.
I fucking do, too.
We'll help you. The mushrooms are going to talk to you. We'll help you. And then one day they're going to trick you into taking a large dose, and then you're going to meet the aliens. Then you're going to realize that this dimension that we live in it's connected to neighboring dimensions that are accessible through certain psychedelics. And then once you see that, you can never unsee it. It's regular life loses its seriousness. It loses like 20% of its seriousness. It's still serious, still regular life, but 20% of it goes away forever, because you know that that's possible. You know that these other worlds exist, and that other people are just out there running through their entire life from birth to death, and they never experience those worlds. And that's weird. You know, Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna and all the various psychedelic wizards that are out there that have been sort of expressing that there's a whole world out there that you're not seeing. It's like we're living life inside this very strange tent, this very thin membrane tent. And if you just unzip that tent and step out, the entire wilderness of the universe exists. But most people live their life inside this very thin-walled tent, and they think that tent sort of defines the actual universe itself, when it's so small and so limited.
Is there a chance that you open that tent and you don't like what you see and now you've fucked your whole life up? Because I think that's most people's apprehension about doing that. Like,
specifically,
can you not come back?
Yes. Yes, even if you don't have schizophrenia or a mental disorder, you might have a view of the world that's untenable with the experience that you have under the influence of psychedelics. But that might mean that your view of the world is bullshit. One of the things that I've found with these psychedelic experiences, it really makes ideologies seem, if not preposterous, at the very least insignificant in comparison to human experiences.
Absolutely.
The experience of camaraderie and friendship and love. You realize, like, oh, this is what's important.
This is what it's really about.
Yes, not enforcing your ideas or pushing them on other people and forcing people to behave the way you behave, but instead love. Okay, so what you're saying is essentially that they're using psychedelic drugs to communicate with interdimensional beings. All right.
Yeah, spirit guides.
Okay, everyone who's done a high dose of psychedelic drugs has had this experience. So everyone who's listening to you right now who's done D.M.T. or done 5 grams of psilocybin, they know that this is you have some kind of communication with something else. The question is that something else inside your psyche, or is that something else a chemical doorway? Question. Is there a chemical doorway inside the mind that opens up, and the belief is that when you die, and this is what the afterlife is, that when you die, your brain produces these chemicals. These chemicals open up this doorway, and this is the portal to the next dimension. So you're saying that the government is aware of this, and they must be aware of this. They've heard enough people talk about it. They must have done experiments on it.
What do scientists do? They want to know the secrets of the universe.
For sure. And people that have the courage to experiment with these things and try them themselves realize that this is such a profound experience that it's so alien that if an alien landed right now in our parking lot and a little gray man with big black eyes got out, it would be nothing compared to what I've seen on psychedelic trip. Have you personally had any experience with interdimensional beings?
Well, because it's all taboo and people...
Well, let me tell you, I have. I 100%
Tell us about it.
Doing DMT. I've 100% communicated with something. The question is whether that something was actually in my imagination or in my mind, or that something was something that takes place in another dimension. I don't know. I can't be sure. There's no way to put it on a scale. There's no way to run it through a test. But what I do know is that it's the same experience.
I can be sure.
Okay.
I mentioned Eric Muller, who you know, Mankel Muller. So he went down to a couple places in Central and South America and did it twice. Both times it was 30 to 40 people in the group. And he said, yeah, we're sitting there and we take the ayahuasca and then all these basically elves, aliens come out of the woods and we're all seeing the same aliens. We're all hearing the same thing. And it's like 43 of us or whatever seeing it. And he goes, but it was the drug's effect on our brains. No. A drug, everyone sees something different. If everybody gets drunk, we all think about what happened to us in high school or college or what's good or what's bad. We all have different experiences. When you're taking a hallucinogen, and suddenly you're all seeing the same thing, it just means it clicked off the part of your brain as a filter, so you go crazy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of schizophrenic people just see more, and then they see everything. It doesn't mean they're right. It just means that the filter is off.
Well, I always said, like, you ever run your hand over an insect that can't see? They have no idea you're there. They're like certain insects that just don't see anything, whether it's a centipede or whatever. DMT, which is what ayahuasca brings up.
Right.
It's it's the active ingredient. You're still you. You're not drunk. That's what's weird about it. Well, I don't know what it is, but if you wanted to get real woo-woo, you would call it some sort of a chemical gateway into another dimension or to another realm that you can't access without it. It doesn't seem like a drug.
But how is it not any different than I got stoned and I saw crazy shit?
Well, first of all, it's endogenous, right? So your brain actually has this chemical inside of it. It's one of the more interesting things about this drug is that your body knows how to process it so well. Like if you do coke, right? Like I'm sure you're coked up for a long time, right? Your body's all fucked up for a long time. Dimethyltryptamine only lasts like 15 minutes.
What?
Yeah, your body recognizes what it is, so it brings you back to baseline very, very quickly.
So if you do this,
yeah,
it's a 15-minute experience?
Yeah.
What did you have you ever had any awakening or vision or?
I've had a lot of visions on dimethyltryptamine. Yeah.
Anything that you once you were done tripping, that didn't seem like the ramblings of a madman, or was it stuff that you were like, oh wow, I had a revelation?
It's hard to say. They all seem impossible to describe to anybody else, other than people that have experienced it. But what it does make you realize is that how the thing that I always felt when I came back is like, how is this possible that you could go to a place like this where you could see something that's way more vivid and way more powerful than regular life? Like whatever it is, it's not like it's dull and confusing and you feel drugged and you feel less. You feel more. You see more. It's more vibrant. It's more powerful. And whatever is over there seems to know you. It seems to understand. It seems to be you're communicating with something that's far more intelligent than you, far more advanced, and not hindered by all of the things that we're hindered by, like our egos and our nonsense and our insecurities and our civilization and culture. It's like it's some sort of other kind of consciousness, and it's they joke about things. They make fun of you, like. One time I did it, and all these jesters, like this, like a geometric pattern of jesters, like a fractal, like infinite jesters, were giving me the finger like this, fuck you, like mocking me. And the message that I got was that I was taking myself too seriously. Like maybe even like while like my intentions going into the trip, I was taking myself too seriously.
Wow.
And I remember relaxing on, oh, okay. And they're like, that's right. Like they're nodding their head. Like, yes. Like it was a message. Like, hey, stupid. You take yourself too seriously. Fuck you.
Fuck you. I like
and it
fuck
was
you.
Gestures, like with a hat and everything.
So in your life now,
Yeah.
like let's say you are stressing out about something as very seriously, you do the fractal gestures. Do you remember them? And go, oh yeah, I had this.
Very, very.
But you know what I mean?
barely.
Like it. You bring something back that you can practically use in your this dimension, this time.
Humility. There's a humility that comes from real psychedelic experiences that you just because you know that they are possible, it makes you second guess the significance of regular existence. Because it seems like whatever that is, like that might be where you go when you die.
Okay. I was waiting for the moment.
I was waiting
for the moment. So
I don't know if that's what it is. 5-MeO DMT does not strike me as something that you'd want to do a lot. It's so terrifying. That's probably the most terrifying experience I've ever had on psychedelics because I ceased to exist. Like it's the one drug where I feel like when I took it, I wasn't there anymore. I was gone until I came back. Like I felt like I didn't have thoughts. I didn't have. I knew I was experiencing the 5-MeO DMT realm or whatever it was, but I didn't. There was no context in terms of. I didn't realize I'm on my couch sitting at home. Like I was gone. There's no visuals. It was just this white, sort of pixelated, like grayish white gone world, and it was terrifying because it felt like death. It was the one thing that felt the most like, oh my God, like now I'm not here anymore. But coming back from it, I think it was very valuable. Like as I was returning, I remember thinking so much about the bullshit way in which I talk. I remember thinking that, like, God, it's like so much of the way I would communicate was not just me trying to get my thoughts across, but me trying to say things in a way that would be impressive or in a way that would be flowery or, try to make it look like I was more intelligent than I was or whatever. But I remember like remembering that like really clearly, like, wow, I gotta clean up the way I talk. So I'm full of shit. Like thinking that as I was trying to figure out how I was going to describe this experience, I was realizing as I was thinking, like, God, I got to figure out how to describe this. Like, boy, I talk like I'm full of shit. So there was value in that. But I did it a few times. I think I did it 3 times. But it was terrifying every time. Terrifying. Like while you're gone, like while you slip away. I remember just thinking like, whoa, this is not good. This is not good. Like you feel like, oh my God, I fucked up. Like I really died. I really stopped being here. And it also makes you think like maybe this is going to the light. Maybe this is what they talk about when they talk about going to the light when you die. Like maybe you're having this kind of experience because it's really disturbing, but then pretty peaceful when it's over. Like I felt pretty good when I came back, but the concept of giving away all of my control of reality like that, for some reason, DMT doesn't scare me as much.
Yeah, I think that it defies description in a different way than other psychedelic experiences do. With something like DMT, it's difficult to describe because there is such an abundance of imagery and thoughts and associations that it's extremely difficult to communicate that to someone. With 5-MeO DMT, there's nothing. And that's also difficult to communicate, that you white out and there's an absence of everything completely.
Yeah. Do you find it terrifying?
I have found it terrifying, yes. It's very, I had a very profound experience with it in 2017 and I have no real desire to use it again.
Yeah, that's my thought too. It's like, I'm not going back there. I'll go back to DMT. I'll go back to that.
Oh, me too. Because it's just a different drug entirely.
I think it is a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
I think it's an undeniably spiritual thing. And that's the thing about it, is like it forces you to think about love and connection and the bonds that people have with each other in a way that you don't get from anything else. The powerful experience of a transcendent psychedelic moment is it's not like anything else you experience in life other than maybe like a near-death experience.
Yeah.
But you could argue that they're the same thing. I know people that have had near-death experiences that swear that it was like a DMT trip. It's good that you can grasp that and have that experience and learn from it, because a lot of people can't, and that's when they have bad trips, because they try to fight it and they try to resist. No, I'm not fighting anything, and then all of a sudden you're in this fucking death spiral. That
was my mistake with shrooms. I should have had one little shroom.
That's a good way to start.
Yeah.
A good way to start is like one, and you get like a little feeling, maybe like a duogram, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Before you want to get into like the 3 to 5 gram, like yikes. It's very bizarre that it's so there. It's so easy to get to. It's just 15 seconds away. It's one of the most insane experiences that a human being could possibly encounter.
Yeah.
If there was a thing that you could, like a ride at Disneyland, it would be a mile long line to get into that fucking thing.
Right.
everybody would be like, oh, I want to go on that ride.
Right.
Because it's so fucking crazy. The problem with the term drug is it's a blanket term that you could use for caffeine, you use for nicotine, you use for
Chocolate
alcohol.
and-
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
Adrenaline's a drug. You know.
And while I'm sure it's possible, I can't imagine after now doing DMT twice, I can't imagine someone becoming like addicted to it.
Oh, I wouldn't know
mean-
about that. I know a guy who was a tattoo artist that was doing DMT every fucking day, multiple times a
Really?
day. And then finally the entities had to sit him down and go, hey, motherfucker,
Chill.
stop. Like, you're going to lose your grip on this world.
Wow.
Yeah. They literally told him to stop doing it, he said.
One of the people I did DMT with wasn't told to like not do DMT anymore by the L's, but was told like, you don't have to come back anymore, almost in a gentle way. Like, we came out of our trips and the friend was like, they told me I don't have to come back anymore. I'm like, how many times have you done it? He's like, 9. I'm like, maybe take a break then.
I've done it 9. I've done it more than 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I haven't done it in a couple of years though, so maybe I could get back in there and have a conversation. But like I said, the last time that I did it was probably the most intense and the most weird, because when they were giving me the finger. But it was like, I've never like, but it's just, I think sometimes what people do, and what I've certainly done, is you protect yourself from criticism, or you protect yourself from your own analysis of your correct and incorrect thoughts and actions by bullshitting yourself. And one of the ways that you realize if you're bullshitting yourself is like, how do you react to satire? How do you react to being mocked? How do you react to people not taking you seriously? Do you go, that's their prerogative, good luck? Or do you go, fuck them, I'm going to fucking make a response video. Whoa.
Right.
And the aliens, or the whatever they were, the jesters, and they all had the little bells, the little hats with the bells.
Yeah, it's so crazy. They look
Ding,
like
ding,
little
ding.
courtyard.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
But they were going like this, fuck you, and they were
That's
like
hilarious.
openly mocking me. And my initial response was, hey. And then I realized, like, oh, and they were like, that's it, you got it. I was like,
They're
all
kind
right,
of
you-
sarcastic.
Oh yeah. Well, they know your bullshit. They know all of your nonsense. They know all of your thoughts. They know, I mean, whatever the fuck they are, whether they're a part of your consciousness or whether these are intelligent entities in another dimension that you're interacting with.
See, that is what I've been questioning since doing this. So I was told by a friend who's done DMT a lot that after you do DMT, pay attention to the real world. And if you believe that the elves are real beings that are independent of something created in your own brain due to the DMT, they'll like send you a sign, right? And I was like, again, crackhead shit. No, I'm not going to meet the elves in real life, right?
Right.
So one of the things in my first trip that they kept telling me was, this is not the end. This is not the end. They kept telling me that because I think I was asking them, like, is this what happens when you die? Like, what is this? They said the phrase, this is not the end, multiple times. Directly after the trip, we go to a restaurant. And I wasn't liking the energy. Like, there's like a glow after you do DMT that you kind of want to maintain. And I didn't like the energy in the first restaurant. So I was like, let's leave. Went to another restaurant.
What was wrong with the energy?
The people were just weird. I don't know. It's like you create like a bubble when you do it with like friends and you're like, I don't like what they might do to our bubble. So then we go to another restaurant and there's a huge sign that just says, this is not the end on the thing. And I'm like,
Whoa.
what? And then I looked at my friend who told me to look for signs and he's like, told ya.
Whoa. When everybody does it, what you get when they're describing it is just sort of like trying to use words to describe something where there's no references. It's not, the words don't work. You you could kind of tell me what it was like and I could kind of go, yeah, okay, I kind of see that because I've done it. But if I hadn't done it, there's no way. I have nothing. The first time I did it only took one, and I just got to the door. I got like to the door of the DMT dimension. I was like, what is this? This is weird. It was really weird, but I didn't even know what weird was because like 20 minutes later I did a second one. And the second one I took way more. I took like 3 big hits. And then it was almost like you're in a slingshot or a catapult. It was like you could feel the tension, like tick, 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 tick. And all of a sudden, you shot through these colors and lights into like what felt like some new place.
What is your physical doing during all of this?
Just laying there. Yeah. One time recently I did it, like the last time I did it was like a couple of years ago. I opened my eyes in the middle of it. It was very strange. It's like I can almost see reality, but it was all real pixelated, and it was like I was seeing life through like dirty saran wrap or something. It was just very strange. And then I closed my eyes back and I went. It's the experience of the psychedelic realm is more vivid than regular life, which is real strange, because it doesn't feel like you're on a drug, because you're still you. That's another part of it. It doesn't change your, like when you're drunk, it changes the way you think. Like you think different. This is not that. This is like you think the same way, but you're being confronted with something that's insanely alien. Just alien to everything that you know to be true. And then there's all these things around you that seem to be alive, and they seem to be talking to you and communicating with you. The last time I did it, was a bunch of jokers that were giving me the finger, like jesters. Gestures with, like, you know, they have the little bells.
Yeah.
They were all like shaking and giving me the finger and like spinning around, like going, fuck you. They were mocking me. And the thing that I got from it was like, oh, I take myself too seriously. I need to be mocked. And they were mocking me. And as they were mocking me, I relaxed. And then they like pointed at me like, you get
got
it.
yeah.
You get it. Because you can get lost. You can take yourself seriously, and you want others to take you. Like, what is the grossest kind of man? Like the kind of man who wants everyone to tremble when he walks into a room, wants, rose petals thrown at his feet. He wants everyone to call him sir.
And be uncomfortable.
Yeah, everyone to be uncomfortable because he's a fucking man.
Yeah.
And that kind of guy responds very poorly to being mocked, right? So I think that it was like letting me know, like, hey, bitch, you got a little of that in you. You need to get that out of your system.
Palliative.
Profound alleviation of anxiety.
There you go.
Because it transforms your perception of where you stand in the world, and it's an absolute ego dissolver. You are confronted with experiences that defy logic. And one of the things that this is interesting. One of the things that shied me away from UFOs was DMT. Because it was so profound. It was so crazy that if a UFO landed right in front of my house, I'd be like, yeah, it's not DMT though. Because DMT was a completely different dimension, and there were things there. Now, I don't know what these things are, but they seem to be communicating with you, and they seem to be talking to you, and they seem to know everything about you. So the question is, like, is that really your subconscious? Is this what you know about yourself stripped down to some very bare, raw form, and then confronted with these psychedelics that perturb your visual cortex? So they provide you with all these intense visualizations. Or is it a chemical portal to another dimension?
Were they effulgent beings, light beings?
The way I describe them is they're complex geometric patterns made out of love and understanding, and that they're communicating with. That's very similar to what it feels like when you do dimethyltryptamine. And Alex has had
wow. I mean,
uncountable
just if
number
I
of
dropped a little
experiences.
Purple Barrel right now and just
That's
looked
right.
at that, I'd have a nice afternoon.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Well, a lot of the most profound psychedelic experiences are the compounds. They mimic normal human neurochemistry. Like dimethyltryptamine it's a natural occurring compound in the human brain. It's produced by your liver, your lungs, and there's a lot of evidence, at least in mammals, it's produced by your pineal gland, which is literally your third eye.
You didn't have enough.
That's what I was just going to tell you.
Really?
Yeah, because you only took one hit. You usually take three. You take three, and the rocket ride leads you somewhere. It takes you to the center of the
you take
universe.
3.
Three in a row. Take
the
a
same
big
time.
one, blow it out. Take a big one, blow it out. Take a big one, and as you're taking the third one, you're already seeing the world crystallize in front of you. It already starts turning into geometric patterns. You put the pipe down, lay back in the chair, and you just shoot off to the center of the universe. The terrifying thing is you cease to exist. Like it's the one drug that I've ever taken where you're not there anymore.
No.
Even NN dimethyltryptamine, which is the difference between 5-methoxy-dimethyltryptamine is just an oxygen molecule attached to it. But NN dimethyltryptamine is incredibly visually stimulating. 5-methoxy is not.
Yeah.
It's just white. Post-trip, I'd hit a tape recorder right when I became conscious again and start talking about the experience. And what I remember saying about the 5-methoxy DMT experience is like, as I'm trying to recount what happened, I feel my ego trying to retake hold of the situation and even use words in a way that might impress you with my ability to describe things. Or as a professional comedian too, I was aware that like a lot of what you're doing, you're saying things in a way that's pleasing to people so that they get excited about hearing you talk. And I was very aware of that while I was doing that. I'm saying I'm trying to explain things that are not possible to explain because the words that we're using were all invented for a world that doesn't exist in the DMT dimension. And once you break through, it is so profoundly alien that any words
and liberating.
Yes. Yeah. Well, in a way, I mean, it may be really truly realize that we are in a soup of atoms. And that it's not, there's not like Michael Pollan, Joe Rogan, and Jamie Vernon in a room. Here's a wood table. There's oxygen in between us. No, we're in a universal stew of particles. And it breaks those particles down, or at least it gives you a view into that, and you cease to exist, which is the most bizarre thing because it's so similar to N,N-dimethyltryptamine chemically, but so different in
experience.
The fact that you're not there while you're doing regular like N,N-dimethyltryptamine, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca. Have you done that, the pure version of it?
No, not the pure version.
The pure version is like a very short, much more intense ayahuasca experience. I've never done ayahuasca. I've only done the DMT version. But
by injection or
no, smoking it. But what you get out of it is you're there while this is happening, and you're just blown away, and you're like, I can't
that's
believe
true in
what I'm
ayahuasca
seeing.
too. You're present.
But there's all these entities that are trying to calm you down. Relax, take it in, settle down. They're all trying to calm you down and
that's
alleviate. Helpful. Yeah, it's weird, and they're also fucking with you. Like they give you the finger. Like I had a bunch of jokers that were like dancing around me, giving me the finger.
Did you have machine elves too?
I don't believe in that thing. I don't know what that is. Like McKenna had those experiences of machine elves. I saw it, what I described as complex geometric patterns that are made out of love and understanding. They seem to me to be like the building blocks of the soul all around you all the time.
Wow.
Like some just gigantic, impossibly large, infinite well of souls. Just these things dancing around you, and they were never one thing. They would be one thing for a second, and they change into something else, and then they change into something different. And the more profound the experiences got, the more profound the next one would be. And they kept saying, like, look at this. Yeah. But the words weren't real words. That's the other thing. It's like I'm saying the words, look at this. And I would have that in my head, but I never heard anybody say it. It was almost like it was triggering the concept of those words in my mind.
Right.
I got a buddy of mine who's a world champion kickboxer. He microdoses, and he fights on it. Fights high on mushrooms.
Do they test for it, or
nope.
it's just
nope?
That's funny.
Fucking people up while he's on mushrooms.
That's great.
And I mean, better than he's ever looked in his past. He said he could see things coming before they happen.
Yep.
He said he literally feels like he's got some sort of psychic ability when he's sparring. Like he sees what guys are doing, and if you watch him fight, he just looks way sharper than he's ever looked before.
Yeah.
And homeboy's doing mushrooms. Yeah. I know the John Hopkins study on psilocybin has shown some pretty incredible benefits, and there's a lot of people now that are starting to look to it for treatment for people with PTSD or addiction issues.
One of them that came out of Johns Hopkins for breaking tobacco addiction. 15 patients, small clinical study, statistically significant, 10 out of 15 people. After 1 or 2 heroic doses of psilocybin, 12 months later, had not smoked a cigarette.
Wow.
So, I mean, to break tobacco addiction, which is one of the most addictive substances on this planet, is phenomenal.
That's incredible. And, I also think it's a significant solution to this problem that we're facing with pills and a lot of destructive drugs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-destructive drugs that people are taking because these people are hurting. What psilocybin gives you that these drugs don't, it gives you a potential to heal. It gives you a moment to reflect. It gives you a change in the way you think and you interface with the world. And that doesn't exist in those other drugs. Those drugs are escape drugs. And the need to escape is what we got to eliminate. And I think that's one of the things that psilocybin can help. It can help alleviate the need to escape.
I guess what I want to know about is, like, because I'm, obviously a person in recovery. I don't drink, I don't take drugs, haven't done for a long time, and I recognise for certain people that they can't do it safely. psychedelics and hallucinogens seem to me exist in a realm outside of that because they're not pleasure seeking. There's seem to me like it's a spiritual portal. And when I listen to say Terence McKenna talking about his experiences in psychedelia at such length and with such lucidity and with so many philosophical connotations, and the way that he uses the information he's getting from hallucinogenic experiences to speculate on how we should organise society, what the implications are for freedom, his refusal to accept that there are certain kind of experiences that should be prohibited, that it's ridiculous that adults should be prevented from having that. I'm fascinated.
DMT is interesting in that, first of all, it's very quick. The experience is only about 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. And it's not necessary, it's not an intoxicant in the way that you would think about traditionally. You are still you in the face of this experience. And I think it's some sort of a chemical gateway. That's what I think. I think there's a gateway in your mind that can lead to some other dimension that's probably there all the time.
If there is a omnipresent, continually existing realm that human beings aren't accessing because of the particular biochemical formulation of consciousness as it is in this point in our evolution, and that we can get there, and it seems as I've heard Terence McKenna say it's more real. It's more real. There's stuff in there.
Yes.
And and when he talks about them beings, that he describes as self-dribbling basketballs, creating Fabergé egg, devices through vibration, and they're telling you to do it.
I never saw that.
I want that.
He's called them machine elves. He's called them all sorts of different things. The way I've described them is they're the geometric patterns made out of love and understanding. That's what they seem like.
So you can look at a geometrical pattern and read meaning into it. It had an emotional quality.
They're made out of something, and they move, they change. They don't stay what they are. They're constantly evolving in front of you into something more and more beautiful. It's very weird.
What did it make you feel?
Like I knew nothing. That was the most profound aspect. All of this stuff that you concentrate on every day is nonsense. And there is some other thing that's connected that's probably influencing this world.
Yeah.
And it's probably what people see when they have near-death experiences, the depictions of the afterlife. I mean, that's probably what it all is.
And religious experiences. Yeah. And when prophets are talking about, oh my God, I went into this realm, there's these beings, they've told me we're all one, we have to love each other.
Scholars in Jerusalem are connecting Moses' experience with the burning bush to the acacia tree. The acacia tree, which is rich in DMT. The burning bush is what God was to Moses. And that through this burning bush, he came out with these 10 commandments of how people should live their lives. I mean, that easily could have been just a very convoluted sort of translation of a DMT trip.
Certainly. And also when you think of, certainly there are archetypal images that seem to be repeated throughout ancient cultures and archaic stories that seem to refer to the potential for plant experiences to affect consciousness. Even the Garden of Eden, do not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, that otherwise you will become as gods. I sense that. Now, if there is some realm that we can reach through that experience that puts into perspective everything else we experience on the material realm, and that thing seems to, in your words, be emanating love and understanding while ever changing, completely formless and communicating love and understanding, I can't help but think that should become our priority, to have a relationship with that realm and to bring about that experience. I don't even mean in a literal way, because even Terence McKenna said there are some people, vulnerable souls, he was probably referring to people like me, that probably shouldn't mess around with that kind of stuff.
I think he was really talking about people with schizophrenia. Or people need to understand that there's a lot of this squirreling away resources and money and things and trying to climb that corporate ladder. This is a finite life. It doesn't last that long. It's a trick. You get sucked into this trick, and this trick is what every CEO and every head of every corporation, every chief financial officer, all these people that are just trying to improve the bottom line, rake in more money, keep this company growing and keep kicking ass. It's a trick. You're sucked up in a trick. There's a natural human tendency to accumulate numbers for whatever reason. Go back to our early days when resources were scarce. And if you get sucked into that trick, one day you're going to wake up, and that's going to usually be too late. Usually it's on your deathbed. Usually it's close to it. You're like, what did I do? This is it? My health is failing. My life's falling apart. And what has my life been? It's been 10, 12, 14 hours a day in these stuffed offices under fluorescent lights, crunching numbers and trying to acquire things. And for what? Like, what impact have I made on humans? What is the negative impact of my ambition on the people that are around me? Like, all this is like, the one thing that psilocybin and particularly just psychedelics in general can provide is a break from patterns, a stopping, a ceasefire of all the momentum of our culture, civilization, finances, taxes, credit card debt, all that shit just stops. And you get a chance to step back and look at the machine, watch it all whirl and spin in front of you, and you get to say, oh, I got sucked into the trick. I'm sucked into a trick.